Isabella,
All right, hello everyone. I'm Isabella, as Victor said, and today we're going to be talking about AI and academic writing. So this is a presentation that was made by both me and Anya, our other Education USA intern, and let's get started. So our first section is going to be about academic writing in general. And we're just going to give you an introduction to academic writing. So basically, academic writing is a structured way of presenting your ideas and arguments in kind of a clear, formal, evidence-based manner. And it's really important because it helps you communicate your ideas clearly, and it's also used in universities, research, and professional environments. So no matter what, you'll end up using it in your higher education and then also onwards in your job. And it also does form the foundation of your academic success in the US and also beyond. So, regarding academic writing, I think the most important thing to know of is an academic essay and how to write one. So, the structure of an academic essay basically, you'll have an introduction, and here you introduce the topic, you explain its importance, and then at the end of the introduction, you'll generally say your thesis statement. And we'll go into a little bit later about what your thesis statement is, but afterwards, you'd have your body paragraphs, and each paragraph should kind of discuss a point related to your argument. And each point should have evidence, so things like facts, research, or examples that support it, and then tie it all back to your main argument. And then in your conclusion, you'd summarize your main points, you'd reinforce your thesis statement, kind of discuss the significance of your findings, and the conclusion is one spot where you really do not want to introduce new ideas. It's very much just kind of wrapping everything up, explaining your argument again, and just leaving it be at the end. So, when choosing a topic for an academic essay, it's really important to choose something that's both specific and focused. So, oftentimes, a lot of students will struggle with choosing something that's a bit too broad, and that makes it much harder to research because you have more things you have to research. And something kind of very focused will make it easier to research and then easier to write about without having to write about it for a very long time for like a really big word or page count. And choosing something you know well also makes it a bit easier to research because then you're a bit more familiar with the topic and you kind of know where to start your research and know how to start writing about it instead of having to learn about something completely brand new. At least that's what I feel from my experience. And also make sure there's enough research material on the topic. So oftentimes you might think, oh, this is like a topic I'm really interested in, but maybe it's something that is very recent, like 2 to 3 years ago, maybe even like happened this year. That kind of thing can be very difficult to research, or it's like a new technology or something like that. So just before you commit to a topic, really make sure that there is enough that has already been said about it. And regarding writing a strong thesis statement, so like I mentioned, the thesis statement is usually at the end of your introduction. And so what is it? It's a sentence that basically states your main argument or your claim. And ideally, a thesis statement is clear, concise, and arguable. So clear meaning, not confusing in the way that it's written. Concise, so it's not too wordy. It gets very much directly to the point. And arguable, so it has to make a point that you can then argue for in your academic essay with your body paragraphs. And regarding supporting your argument, so use evidence in academic writing, always back up your ideas with credible sources. And these can be things like books or journal articles, research papers, studies, that kind of thing. And facts and statistics can also help prove your argument, but I would lean more towards things like journal articles or research papers. And then always make sure to connect your evidence to the points that you are making, and then kind of state how those points that you're making relate back to your main argument and how they support it. So, regarding an academic writing style, you need to keep it formal. Basically, it has to be formal, clear, and objective. Try and avoid using things like slang, contractions, overly casual language, that kind of thing. Passive voice and first person as well, a lot of professors tend to dislike. So, I would stay away from those if you can. And then, ideally, correct grammar is also really important. It helps with clarity and ease of reading and just makes your argument a lot more accessible to the reader. So, regarding common mistakes you should avoid, try avoiding things like vague statements. Being specific is always better. And then unsupported claims as well. So, backing your argument with evidence. is really, really important in academic writing, and then avoiding writing personal opinions in your academic essay, unless a professor specifically asks about your personal opinion on the topic. Assume that you're going to be looking more at facts and evidence and what has already been researched about this topic and not necessarily what you think. And so just some tips for academic writing. Reading academic papers really, really helps. This helped me a lot. I had a professor who had us basically read 3 or 4 academic papers a week and just briefly summarize the main argument and the points that they made. And it really helped me kind of just see how academic writing is done, how it's written, like what kind of structure it follows. So that was honestly really, really helpful. And reading academic papers in whatever field you're studying in also helps you get yourself familiar with like the terms that a specific academic field uses. Also, writing regularly and then practicing summarizing articles or books, like I talked about, and seeking feedback from teachers and peers. This one is also huge, especially your professor. They're always willing to help. And if you should like use that resource, because honestly, we'll talk about it a bit later too, but a professor can help you a lot when it comes to academic writing if you're struggling. So just a conclusion for this academic writing section of the presentation. So academic writing is a skill you can absolutely develop through practice. Your essays should have 3 main components, and those should be an introduction, body paragraphs, and then a conclusion. Always connect the evidence to the argument that you're making and avoid common mistakes such as vagueness or unsupported claims. And structure, clarity, and evidence are essential for strong academic writing. So in our second part of the presentation, we are going to talk about plagiarism. So plagiarism is the act of using someone else's work or ideas without giving them credit. And it's considered dishonest, and it often leads to severe academic consequences. Depending on the professor, depending on your university, this can range from failing just the assignment to failing the course to even being expelled or put on academic probation or suspension. So definitely something you want to avoid. So for some examples of plagiarism, these can be things like copying text, so copy pasting sentences or paragraphs like directly from the internet without any citation, paraphrasing incorrectly. So when you change a couple of words from the author's argument, but the basic sentence structure and the basic kind of meaning of the original statement is the same, or using ideas without acknowledging their origin. So basically presenting someone else's idea as your own without referring to that person and just claiming that it was something that you did. So why plagiarism is wrong? Plagiarism, first off, it's unethical. It's unfair to the original creator. They put in the time and the effort to do this research, and you are kind of just passing it off as your time and your effort. It also misrepresents their work as yours and their ideas as your ideas. Also, you do lose learning opportunities. You don't fully engage with the material if you don't do the work yourself. While this is true of just most assignments in general at university, this is especially true of academic essays, because essays are kind of designed to make you critically think about what you're writing about and how to argue what you've written about and read about. And it also damages your reputation. So this plagiarism can and does hurt your academic career and your integrity within the school. So it's really important to make sure that you're not committing plagiarism. So speaking of how to avoid plagiarism, always cite your sources. So citation styles like MLA, APA, Chicago, these are the most common ones in US universities, are there to allow you to give credit to the original authors. And most of these citation styles actually have websites where you can look at how to format and cite papers in that citation style. It's really helpful. And they oftentimes also have specific examples of, for example, Chicago has a website and you can look at it and see how to cite, for example, a journal article in Chicago. So it's really helpful, and it's there as a free resource for you to use. And then with quoting and paraphrasing, always use quotation marks for direct quotes, and then add whatever citation is necessary for that specific citation style. And when paraphrasing, really make sure that you're rephrasing in your own words. I know I often struggle with this, where like I'll write something and it's very similar to what the author said, but you really I found I just have to kind of read a whole paragraph and then just think about how I would explain it to someone and then write it. Because you really don't want it to sound too similar to the original text. And you still do need to cite the source when you paraphrase because it's not your own idea, it's not your own research, it's still someone else's that you're just using in your essay. So regarding citation basics, some common citation styles, as I said earlier, are MLA, APA, and Chicago. These really just, it depends on the professor. It depends oftentimes on the field that you're in. I'm an international relations student, and our kind of quote unquote industry standard is Chicago. So most of my professors have required Chicago. But definitely, if you're unsure, just ask your professor and they'd be happy to let you know which one they prefer, or sometimes they don't have a preference. So each style has specific rules for citing books or articles, websites, any kind of source type. And Chicago, as I mentioned earlier, does have their own website for this that if you use Chicago, it's free, use it as a guide. It's amazing. And Purdue OWL also is another website that has a really good tool for kind of referencing different citation styles and how to cite different sources in different citation styles. So just some example citations down below here. We have an APA citation, an MLA citation, and a Chicago citation. And always, if you're confused, there's going to be manuals of style online that you can absolutely look at, or you can always ask your peers or a professor as well. So using citation tools, there are citation tools like EasyBib, Citation Machine, Zotero, and these can help create proper citations automatically. And basically the way that they work is you usually either insert a link or all the information with the source. And what these tools can do is they can save time and can provide accurate citations. However, I have used both EasyBib and Citation Machine before, and I've used the built-in citation generator that's in Word. And they usually are accurate, but it is much, much better to double check. I know it's tedious and takes a lot of time and is not very fun, but I think it's worth it, especially if you have a professor that's really just wants you to have properly done citations. Just double checking can honestly like save your grade, and citation generators can be wrong sometimes. So some consequences of plagiarism. You can fail the assignment or the course itself, depending on the professor. This can damage your academic reputation and credibility. And in like absolute severe cases, it can lead to suspension or expulsion. And the sad thing is that most universities will not accept your application if you were expelled for plagiarism. Oftentimes, when you apply for universities in the US, they'll ask you if you have previous college experience. And if you say yes, they'll ask whether you graduated or if you're expelled or suspended. And in the case of academic plagiarism, they might not accept you because they will find out. So for ethical writing, it's just good to always give credit to the original authors. It shows respect to their work, their effort. And also citation is just the way that academia is built. Academia is built on citing other scholars and debating other scholars and referring to the works that other people have done before you. And honestly, just a tip is to take notes when you do your research, keep track of your sources. It avoids confusion, makes it easier to cite later. Honestly, when I write my essays within each body paragraph, if I'm using a specific source, I will put that source name and then also maybe the number of a page that was really helpful for me so that I remember to cite from that author when I write that body paragraph. Whatever works for you, just make sure that you're keeping track of where your information is coming from. So, conclusion for part 2 on plagiarism. Plagiarism can be avoided by citing your sources properly. And again, you can choose between several citation styles for this if the professor or the faculty or the kind of division of the university doesn't have a preferred citation style. Use your own words and paraphrasing. This is really important. And then keep track of what sources you get your information from. And upholding academic integrity will really help you succeed both in university and beyond. These are definitely skills that can transfer over into your work life. And so the consequences of plagiarism in and of itself just are not worth the long-term risks. And universities do use software to check for plagiarism. I know all of my major assignments I have to upload to Turnitin, which is both a plagiarism and an AI check software. So you kind of can't like get away with it a lot of times. And then our last section of this presentation is going to be about artificial intelligence or AI in academic writing. And this is really interesting because this is something that has only recently become kind of a hot topic within university circles. So we're just going to give you an overview about it really quickly and talk about what's going on. So what is AI? AI, or artificial intelligence, refers to technology designed to perform tasks that usually require human intelligence. And some examples of AI tools, so ChatGPT, I'm sure a lot of you guys know of it. This is something that can help with writing, brainstorming ideas, generating text, that kind of thing. It's called generative AI. You also have things like Grammarly. Grammarly is technically also an AI tool, and it helps with grammar and style, and basically analyzes written text that you already have and kind of suggests grammar suggestions to make your writing more clear. So how can AI help with academic writing? In college, basically don't submit an assignment generated by AI. Pretty much every single university will consider it plagiarism. Many professors use AI checkers, and it's usually pretty easy to spot when a student uses AI. But there are ways that AI can help with the writing process in general. So regarding brainstorming, AI can suggest ideas or help you generate topics for your essay. So generating things like research questions, maybe finding academic sources or like relevant literature in the field, or finding evidence or examples. It can also help you organize your thoughts. So some AI tools can help you structure your essay or your outlines. And also it can grammar and style check. So AI can spot grammar mistakes, suggest improvements. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Grammarly is a tool that is an AI tool. So our second intern, Anya, actually did this part of the presentation. And so she asked ChatGPT to kind of generate a research question for her. And she's a political science student, so this is a very political science type of question. But basically, she said, generate a research question about the challenges consociational democracy in Bosnia. And then ChatGPT generated a research question for her, and then she asked it to make it more concise, and then that happened. And so this is kind of a jumping off point. So maybe now you have an idea about what you'd want to research, because here you have a generated research question, and maybe this is something that you'd either, maybe change a bit yourself or go with this research question. But ultimately, the AI tool is not writing the entire paper for you. It's just providing you with ideas. So some pros of using AI in writing: this really does save time. It helps you organize and check your work pretty quickly. It speeds up the brainstorming and the research process so you can focus more on writing itself. And it also improves quality, so AI can suggest improvements in writing style and grammar like we talked about. And then it helps overcome writer's block, so AI can give you ideas if you're stuck. And so it can do things like generate titles for papers or assignments, which sometimes can be pretty difficult. And then just some cons and ethical concerns of using AI. Over-reliance is a really, really big one. A lot of times students become dependent on using AI, and this can weaken your writing skills and your critical thinking skills. So think of AI just as something that is a tool used to help you, and you can only really use it if you need it and not necessarily just use it because it's convenient in there. And then also learning how to write at a college is just a huge part of your education. Writing skills are something that you develop in university, and they're writing skills that will help you in all parts of your life. So just missing out on developing those is going to set you back a lot. And there are always other resources. There's writing labs. There's a lot of times universities will have academic tutoring centers that can help you with writing an essay. Sending drafts to your professors is also something that you can do. You can absolutely send an email to a professor and ask them to look over an outline or a draft and okay it, or say, maybe change this, maybe change that. Professors really will give you helpful feedback. And this is really useful because obviously this is the person that's going to be grading that essay for you. So they can give you feedback that will be very in line with their grading policy and the requirements they have for the assignment itself. Also, the second issue is accuracy issues. AI tools often make mistakes or provide inaccurate information. This is actually really big in my field in international relations. We have a lot of terms that are very specific to international relations, but are also used in other fields. So for example, realism. This is an international relations theory, but is also used in other academic fields. And a lot of times when you ask AI about realism, it will start talking about realism in other research fields and not international relations. So that's another thing. It does often provide an accurate information, and also at the college level, especially, the things that you're learning become so specific that AI just kind of doesn't really keep up. And this relates to the second point. It can be easy to spot because it's vague or broad. It doesn't have the specifics of the information that you learn in class. So again, it's really helpful to get you started in the right direction, not necessarily when it comes to the fine details of your writing. And also, it will not work for writing an entire essay because it doesn't have the content or the requirements. It doesn't understand that your professor gave you a specific assignment and a specific task that they want you to complete, and thus is only really useful as just kind of an aid. Also, it's not original. Using AI to write an essay often is considered cheating, especially if you don't contribute your own thoughts. It depends on the university policy, but pretty much all of them don't want you to use generative AI to write an essay. So using AI ethically, use it as a support tool, let it help with minor edits, not the whole essay. Do your own work, ensure your ideas and analysis are your own, and then double check the AI output. Please make sure if you do use AI, just make sure it's accurate before using it. I personally don't use AI for writing my essays because a lot of times it's just not worth the hassle, in the sense that it's just the stuff that I'm writing about is so specific that it doesn't help, and I end up doing the work myself anyway. And then AI versus plagiarism. So this is also really important here. AI generated content and like copying AI text, presenting it as your own is still plagiarism because it's not your work, it's not your thoughts. So when you're using AI, just make sure to add your own original thoughts, use it as an aid, not as the thing that's making the main content, and make sure that using AI doesn't conflict with your university's academic integrity code. So Anya goes to American University, and this is their academic integrity code. And they, as we'll see here, they don't have an overall AI policy, but most professors will discourage you from using AI. It really, really just depends, and you have to absolutely double and triple check to make sure that you're not, told that you're plagiarizing because you're using AI. So different institutions will have different rules for AI use. My university does not allow it at all. They allow it for outlining, I think, or making kind of a general structure for your essay, but nothing else. And all of my professors pretty much say, don't use AI, don't use AI, don't use AI. I'm writing my thesis, my bachelor's thesis right now, and my professor, my advisor for my thesis basically said, do not even touch AI when writing your thesis, because they put it through so many AI checkers that if they even suspect that I'm using AI, I have to prove that I didn't, and it just makes it that much harder, and I could end up not graduating. So definitely make sure to double check and see, but a lot of professors will definitely be more on the no side of things. So just conclusions on AI, key takeaway, it's a tool, not a shortcut. It can help improve your writing, but your work and your writing does have to be your own. And really do check AI guidelines with university and professors. It may be up to professor discretion. It can be up to the faculty discretion. It can be up to the university. Just double check. And be ethical. Make sure to follow academic integrity when using AI. So just to wrap everything up, we talked about academic writing, plagiarism, and AI, and these are all concepts that you should be familiar with if you want to think about university success and success in academic writing. And just some tips about academic writing: practice writing regularly, always cite your sources and keep track of where your information comes from, and use AI responsibly to improve your work. So next steps would be things like working on developing your writing skills and staying committed to academic integrity. So that is all for me. And we just have a lot of time actually for questions. So feel free to write them in the chat. This is the end of the presentation. Feel free to write them in the chat or unmute and ask me any questions you